Hey, good day, neighbors. I've got new cell phone, so new camera. Don't know how well it works. I've been testing off and on, trying to figure out where the microphone is. So right now, I hope the microphone is somewhere down here, and we'll see how this works. In testing, it worked a little bit better. The sounds like the microphone on the I'm not using. If I unplug the headset, the microphone on the cell phone isn't very good, but we'll play with it. And this isn't a good headset. I already had to toss one headset because it had a static click while speaking. So you learn something new every day. Anyway, camera is a higher resolution, but I've got it set on lower resolution to save video size. But maybe you'll see hummingbirds come and go. We'll see. So good coffee morning. There's a hummingbird. Good coffee morning to the hummingbirds. Saturday here in Portland. Beautiful day. Probably should be somewhere protesting something, you know. I don't know if you can hear the hummingbird chirping in the background, but that was one of him. That's kind of the dominant. I'm thinking it's male, but who knows. So, first video I did on this phone was a risk, and I was testing out the video and everything else, but talking about risk while you're having coffee. So, there are people that evaluate and study risk for a living. One name for the profession is actuarials. They're statisticians. They're insurance industry professionals. They're industrial professionals. They are biological professionals. They are chemical. They are physicists. They are politicians. They are lobbyists. So this risk idea is huge, very big in society. This is what we're building. So someone out there looks at these risks and they'll offer an insurance policy around it. Let's call it business insurance for a manufacturing facility that employs 100 people moving tons of goods and materials through the warehouse and the manufacturing and the trucks coming and going and the roads in and out. So they need insurance to cover risks that they pose to the world around them, right? So people have studied this big time. I learned about actuarials in the days before this internet, you know, on bulletin boards, arguing about DDT contamination and what it can and can't do and how we study and learned about it back in the 70s and the 60s through things called cluster studies, which were one more piece of a puzzle of studies in order to prove cause and effect. And it's not just looking at a few little statistics here and there. It's professionals analyzing reams of information. In some cases, in this case, this was back in the day when there weren't computers. There weren't computerized records at all. You had to go to files and open them up somewhere in a dusty basement, maybe. So, or the file was in the doctor's office and it wasn't checked out and it hasn't been turned back in yet. And so, actuarials, somebody spends a lifetime doing these tedious chores. They analyze, we could get into automobile liabilities and statistics from manufacturing to crash details, to repair details, and how well and thorough and for how long all of that information is tracked. So that's how your auto manufacturer knows how to send you recall information about your car, even years after it's sold. Somewhere in that old musty data, stored out on computers now as something saying that this car belongs to you or you belong to that car. So people study this very deeply. Where am I going with this risk information, this risk analysis? Risk analysis is a key functioning part of any engineering methodology I'm aware of. Another expert at the time was in process methodologies. I've got some badges. So that risk thing is out there. How do you convey, how do you study, how do you understand what that risk is? Well, one way is you go to a set of books in a library called Beers Standards. Beers is an acronym for the study, and it's constantly updated. It's not one book printed. It's not one book reprinted every year. There's so many facets of the studies that the book is updated in leaps and bounds. So it's a living document, you could say, that has elemental and compound risk information. So if people are going to be around those materials, there is a risk. Insurance companies, corporations, someone back in that risk management process should have done these considerations. This risk management process is what let Flint drinking water get poisoned. Someone meddled with something. A process inside an institution that was there for reasons. Arguably it should be updated. We do that too, but that's part of the process. So now we've uncovered beers. You'd have to go Google that to get an explanation, more details. It is hard to find, it's hard to understand, and it's hard to put it. It's one piece of information in a stochastic data set that has lots of variables. So if a person is exposed in that chemical plant to, let's use orthoxylene. Orthoxylene as solvent is a liquid, patient doesn't exist because it blows up. So the chances of you running into liquid orthoxylene are very slim. But if that orthoxylene did explode and go off, it turned into plastic. You don't get to be near orthoxylene. You do get to be near plastic. So there is a risk there. There's an inherent risk. The reactor that made this plastic in massive volumes was an exothermic reactor. It was designed so the top would blow off of it in a high pressure event. It would not blow out the sides of the pressure vessel because of the shrapnel effect. They would rather have one huge stainless steel lid fly up in the air and land somewhere. Or actually, the design was more for it to tin can over than to go flying somewhere. This is the depth of the engineering consideration for an exothermic reactor set. Risk analysis. What is it? Why do we do it? How do you do it? This is an opener. Thank you for listening. Peace out, and I hope the video worked.